All right, well, today I'm really excited to be the presenter. I have the opportunity to talk about a couple of subjects actually that are passions of mine. And they're represented by this first title of my slideshow, Mountains in a Changing World, Community College in France. I have a couple of goals today that I hope to be able to accomplish. One is to share with you the importance of sustainability, an awareness of sustainability, and working to make sure that we take good care of our resources. The second goal I have is to maybe to convince you to actually participate in a study abroad program and see the world and broaden your perspectives. First of all, I'd like to tell you a little story. When I was young, 5 years old, my family lived in California. And I was attending kindergarten, and my teacher, Mrs. Doyle, talked about going to Hawaii. And my little 5-year-old mind got really scared. And I thought, oh my goodness, that must be so scary. They don't speak English in Hawaii. Now, since that time, of course, I have learned that they do speak English in Hawaii, and I can travel there, and it will be okay. So fast forward 7 years, I'm getting ready for 7th grade. And I don't know how it happened, but I am enrolled in my middle school's pilot bilingual program, which means that I will be taking Spanish class, and I will be taking my social science class will be taught in Spanish. Okay, now I'm really, really terrified, because I am sure that when my teachers speak, I won't be able to understand them. I'm going to fail my tests, I'm going to flunk the class, I'm going to become a laughingstock, and I'm just going to have to drop out of the school at the tender age of 12 years old. Now, fortunately, my experience in the bilingual program did not actually meet my fears. And in fact, I loved my Spanish class. It was great, and I loved my teacher, Senor Barragan. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, taking that Spanish class actually changed my life. It had a very powerful impact on what I would choose as a college major, my career, my circle of friends, and it broadened my perspectives. So my goal is to tell you about one way that you have available to you to broaden your perspectives, and that's through study abroad. Now, what are the benefits of study abroad? Why would anybody go ahead and study abroad? Well, for a language major like me, it's kind of obvious. It's an opportunity for me to improve my language skills. When language majors go abroad, typically they enroll in a language class that focuses their attention on certain aspects of the language, and then they're out and about among people who are speaking that language all the time. Besides that, it's also important to gain intercultural competence, or the ability to move in between cultures, to appreciate different perspectives of different cultures, and also increases global awareness. And in this way, people can work together from across the globe to solve difficult problems, such as global warming. So these are great reasons for somebody who is a language major, but what about for other majors? Why is it a great idea to go and do a study abroad program? Nerlich conducted some research where he looked at the employability of students who had graduated with a study abroad experience compared to their peers who had graduated from college without a study abroad experience. And he found a significant statistical difference, in fact, advantage for students who had gone on a study abroad experience over those who had not. They were more likely to be employed within 4 months of having graduated from college, and particularly in the STEM fields, health, humanities, arts, and social sciences. So why aren't more of you lining up to sign up for study abroad? Any reasons?
Money.
Oh, exactly. It is expensive, right? Last month on the site gooverseas.com, There was an article about how expensive it is to go study abroad, and in Western Europe, depending on the country that you study abroad in, it can cost anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000. That's a lot of money. So why should people do that? Okay, well, maybe there are alternatives. In fact, I want to tell you about an alternative to this great big price tag that's available. I first heard about the program Community College in France, boot camps, a few years ago from Alex Peterson, who works here at Snow College in the Center for Global Engagement. In fact, their offices are now in the Greenwood Student Center, so if you want to go and talk with him about other study abroad opportunities, you certainly can. But he knows about this. If you want to come and talk with me about it, that's great, all right? But ever since I heard about this program, I was convinced that this is something I wanted to do. Now, why are these programs great? Okay, why would you want to go on one of these Community College in France boot camps? Well, first of all, they're specifically for American community college students. That's you guys, okay? This is not some junior level, some senior level program. This is specifically aimed at community college students, students who are frequently less likely to go on a study abroad experience. Second of all, you don't have to speak the language. You don't have to speak French to be able to participate because all of the lectures are in English. Moreover, the programs are theme-based, so, they're open to students from any major, okay? Another advantage is that they're only 2 weeks long during the summer, so it doesn't mess up your regular program during the regular academic school year. They are relatively inexpensive. The cost of tuition, which includes all the courses, housing, food, all your meals are included, as well as field trips, which are really nice, is about $2,400 for this 2-week program. You do have to pay for your own airfare to get from wherever you are to the nearest airport in France, but really, $2,400 is really not bad for a program that is academic in nature. Moreover, the French government offers generous scholarships to students who apply. When you apply, your application is automatically considered for a scholarship. About 2/3 of the students who attended a boot camp last year in France received a scholarship, which reduced their cost of the program as much as $1,400. So they paid $1,000 for this whole program. So once again, really, really affordable for a lot of students. And finally, the hosting institution will grant a certificate of completion that lists the courses, the lectures that were given, and also how well the student did in the program. The boot camps last year that were advertised were these 4. So once again, you can see sustainability is part of the equation. Sustainable food in Dijon, there was urban sustainability in Lyon, Mountains in a Changing World, which is the one that I wanted to go to and was fortunate enough to be accepted into, and then sustainable microarchitecture in Paris. Now, I want to tell you why the one that I attended had such a great location and school as a host university. First of all, Mountains in a Changing World was took place in Grenoble, okay, in the area around Grenoble. Grenoble, as you can see, is in the southeast part of France, and it's right there on the edge of the French Alps, okay? You can see this map, it's kind of there, it might be kind of hard to see, but it's surrounded by 3 mountain ranges. The one to the north is the Chartreuse, the one to the east is the Belledonne, and the one to the west and southwest is the Vercors. Grenoble was also designated the European Green Capital for this year, 2022, by the European Union because of its focus on transformation, in society and sustainability and environmental impact. All right, Now, our host institution, let me go back, was the Université Grenoble-Alpes. And this was the perfect institution for this particular boot camp because a lot of their focus is actually on the mountains. A lot of the researchers who work there actually look at mountain environments, things going on in the mountains, and so we were able to benefit from these professors coming in and lecturing to us about this particular topic. It is an internationally ranked research university, and they have an interdisciplinary approach to teaching and learning, which is something that we also benefited from in our class and on our final projects. The outcomes for this particular program that I attended had to do with mountains. We looked at the complex systems, mountains as vulnerable targets. We looked at threats, and we also talked about maybe how to address these threats to these very fragile environments. Now, you probably noticed I'm not a student, so how did I end up going to this boot camp? Well, luckily for me, faculty are allowed to apply to these, and they are accepted if there is enough room in the program. So I was actually lucky enough to be accepted, and I met lots of wonderful people. But instead of just being an observer, which is typically what faculty do, they invited me to actually participate in the lectures and on the field trips and in the final project. So I really had a wonderful time interacting with the students who came and also being able to participate and learn about sustainability in these delicate mountain environments. Now, I have often been asked, while I was in France and also since I've been back, why did I, a language teacher, choose this particular program for Mountains in a Changing World? In my application, I actually had to write out a statement as to why I wanted to go to this particular program. And I said, you know what? I live in the mountains. It's true, I'm not a geologist, I'm not a biologist, I'm not a climatologist. I don't know about these things, but I'm a person who breathes air. I'm a person who drinks water, all right? These things are important. And where I live, I'm concerned about the growth of population and its impact on these fragile mountain ecosystems. I'm worried that maybe decisions about population growth aren't taking into account available resources. So I wanted to attend the program so that I could add an international perspective to the dialogue going on in my community. So, what did I learn from this particular boot camp? There were three main takeaways that I had. The first was that the dangers of climate change are real. The second is that there are ways to bring together diverse groups to talk about ways to conserve the resources and to use these areas intelligently and sustainably. And then finally, I learned from my participation in this program that individual efforts do make a difference. Let me start with the dangers. Okay, I want to tell you about the case of the mer de glace. Mer de glace means literally sea of ice. This is a glacier that I learned about during my first week while I was at boot camp that is up by Chamonix in the French Alps. It is long, it runs down a very long channel below Mont Blanc, and it's amazing. It was this wonderful place to go to. But let me show you what it used to look like. Okay. In 1870, this is a photograph that was taken, and you can see the mountains, up on either side, and you see that kind of coming down. That's the glacier, the mer de glace. Okay. Now, when I went up to see the mer de glace, this is what I saw from the observation deck. Okay. So there's the observation deck. It looks to me, when I got up there, I thought, well, where's the glacier? And it's actually underneath all that dirt, okay? But you can kind of see there's a little bit of a difference here, okay? Let me show you another with some arrows, okay? I've added this arrow to show you, okay, here's where the glacier came in 1870. Okay, can you tell where that point was in this picture that I took last summer? There it is. Where's the top of the glacier now? There it is. Are you worried yet? Let's look at some more pictures. These come from a website that's actually dedicated to the mer de glace, okay? This is actually not a photograph, as you can tell. It's a painting from 1823, and this is a different perspective. This is actually down in the valley below where I was in that to take those other pictures, or that other picture. And you can kind of see how the glacier in 1823 actually comes down out of that mountain crevice and actually looks like it's pooling on the valley floor, okay? Here's a photograph from a few years later, 1850, and it kind of looks the same. Now, I learned that 1850 was actually the end of the Little Ice Age, okay? And so things were still pretty cold at that point. But look at what happened just about 35, 36 years after this photograph was taken, okay? Now, you can see that the glacier has receded. Okay, it's kind of, in the 1850 picture, you can kind of see how it's up above that near rock outcropping, and in the 1886 picture, you can see how it's actually behind that outcropping. And that great big pool of ice that was on the valley floor, it's receded, okay? Here's another picture, a different angle looking back up into that valley caused by the glacier. You can see the green line is from 1644, the red line, 1821, so not much of a change, okay, in the shape or the extent of the glacier. But 1895, look how far up it has receded, okay? And that's that whole big pile of ice that was there, okay, from before. Here's another aerial photo. Once again, the yellow, Little Ice Age, the red, 1990s. That was during my lifetime, 1990s, okay? I was working on my master's degree and my PhD during that time, and I'm looking at that going, wow, that was not that long ago. Well, even less time ago, 10 years ago, you can see where that blue line is, and it continually recedes every year. So, when you go to the mer de glace, you actually have the opportunity to go down to the surface of the glacier, and you can even go inside. They've created a tunnel where you can walk inside, and so our group decided that we would do that. Well, to get down to the mer de glace, to that part, you take a gondola, or one of those cable cars, you know, that you take down. Anyway, and you get down the mountain part ways, and then you have to go down over 500 steps. So, here I am, going down these steps, and I notice as I'm headed down that they have these little signs. And you can't read that very clearly, but let me tell you what they say. Basically, that one on the left says that that was where the top of the glacier reached in 1985. 1985, that was a year after I graduated college. And then I go down a little bit farther, looking down in that that center picture, that's 1990. It's only 5 years later. Going down even farther, 2001. 2001 was the year I started working here at Snow College. Then I go a little bit farther, 2003. And at this point, I'm thinking, how far down have I come? And so I turn around, I take a picture, and you can kind of see, let's see if I can show it on this screen. Right here, that's where the gondola let us off. And so I've already come down this far down the mountains. That's how much the glacier has receded. And you can see, here's 2003, but this is the level of the glacier. I still have a ways to go to get to the top of the glacier. Well, I did make it all the way down the steps, okay? And went in this little tunnel. You can see right here is where people are getting in. These are, in the past, openings that they used for the tourists to go in and visit the Mer de Glace. I popped inside with my friend Ashley from the program and took a selfie. And then because it's 500 steps back up, and I was the oldest one in the group, I said, I'm leaving right now to start up so I don't make people late. Now, this is just a little bit concerning to me because they say that during my lifetime, which I'm 60 years old, during my lifetime, the Mer de Glace has dropped about 150 to 200 meters in height during my lifetime, 60 years, okay? They say that the deepest point of the glacier now is probably about 400 meters. Worried yet? Let's say that this represents the Mer de Glace, and even though this isn't, a great analogy, when I was born, let's say the glass was full. We're not even talking about how many pitchers of water there were, when the glacier was back in the 1880s. This is just during my lifetime. The glass was full in 60 years ago. Here's where it is today. In another 60 years, it will probably be gone. Are you worried yet? The dangers of climate change are real, and they impact all of us. Now, one of the results of these dwindling resources can lead to conflict, okay? Different groups who need water for different purposes. Okay, here in Utah, we have that going on right now as we consider the future of Great Salt Lake. Well, during the program, one of the professors who came to talk with us was an economist, Arnaud Bouche. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Anyway, he told us about a situation in the Vercors High Plateaus Natural Reserve. And once again, you can see this is where the Vercors are, and with that circle around it. So it was fairly close to where we were in Grenoble at the Université Grenoble-Alpes, okay? Part of the problem with this area is that it's limestone. I mean, that's not a problem in and of itself. But the water, because it's limestone, the water just seeps down into the ground. So there's no surface water in these high plateaus, okay? The only way to get water is to find a spring, a natural spring, okay, where the water's coming up out of the ground. I was very interested to find out that over the past 50 years, there hasn't been a change in the amount of precipitation falling in the Vercors. Interesting, right? So what's the problem? Well, the kind of precipitation that has fallen has changed. There is a lot less snow falling and a lot more rain. What does that mean? That means during the summer, when there are a lot of activities going on in the high plateaus, you don't have as much water available because it's already melted down into the limestone, okay? Some of the groups involved in conflict in the Vercors were the local sheep herders who took their sheep up to graze during the summer, and tourists who like to go hiking, okay? Both of these groups needed water, but there was a very, very limited amount coming out of the springs. And by law, you are not allowed to build something to catch the water and hold it in the Vercors. So what did they do? Okay, sometimes, our teacher talked about how sometimes these, conflicts, might get a little warm and heated and could turn violent. So what do they do? Well, he talked about a system that he and his colleagues have used in other situations and that they were trying to use with these different groups who were using the Vercors high plateaus. And basically, it centers on this process of values mapping. So they identify who the stakeholders are in this particular situation, and they bring their representatives together. They find out what their values are. What are your values for these resources, for this land, for this area? And once they identify these values, these core values, they're able to go through and help these different groups either realize that, oh, we agree on our values, or they're able to help them abstract a common value from similar values, or they help them work together somehow to come to an agreement on how to use these lands so that everybody is benefited by them and nobody is left out. Now, the benefits of such a process are that people come together and they recognize, you know what? You agree with me on the values, okay? We share these values. This is what's important to us. Also, okay, because people can find that they have shared values, it reduces tensions. And it enables them to create solutions that are based on values rather than just the simple, me, this is what I need, right? They're able to see the benefit. Now, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier this semester. We've talked about the seventh generation principle, right? Planning for the seventh generation. This is what they're trying to get them to do. They want long-lasting solutions to these problems, this problem of scarce resources. Okay. Just very briefly, there were three main visions that he was actually able to, he and his colleagues were able to draw from these different groups. And they had to do with economic viability. It was very important for these people. It's one of their values that they be able to use the land to earn their livelihood, okay? But also that it was part of their identity. The sheep herders were like, this pastoral activity needs to continue because that's part of who we are in this area, okay? The second one is that sustainability is an issue. The water is part of the socio-ecological system and we need to maintain it. And finally, their last value or vision was that climate change is real and all of our decisions need to take that into account for the future. Okay. All right, so I've addressed that dangers are real and imminent, that there are ways for groups who want to use the land come together, there are ways for them to come together and use it without having conflict. So the third thing I wanted to tell you about, the third takeaway, was our individual impact and what we can do. I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I just think, what's the point? I can't do anything as my one person and have an impact. Well, Oh, it's up on the side? Okay. Is it now up on the side? No. Oh. There we go. Okay. I'll just try to go from here. All right. So we attended this workshop the first week I was there where we looked at this game called Mater, which means my earth, in 180 minutes. And it's this workshop to get people to think about their individual impact on sustainability, on the resources, okay? So here we are in this class, and we're getting our minds in the right place. We're looking at activities that contribute to carbon emissions, and we're also looking at the effects of those carbon emissions. And we're really looking at it from the perspective of Americans, okay? We were told that Americans produce about an adult American produces about 16 tons of carbon emissions per year, okay, an average. So we're like, okay, and we talked about that, we thought about that, and then by the next week, we're ready to play the game, okay? So here's the game board. It was a virtual game. Here's the game board. All those different colors represent different roles or different avatars, if you will. And off to the side, there are, on the left, you can see there are the different symbols, what they mean, transportation, food, streaming activities, purchases, all these different kinds of things are being taken into account in this game. And my particular avatar was that pink one up at the top. I believe that this is the one I had, Servin. And you can't read it, but there was a profile of this person's use, okay, CO2 emissions and what they did to get there. And mine said, I take the car every day to get to school, because apparently Sylvain is somebody who lives outside of town in a rural area, and so they have to drive in to go to school. I buy few clothes, so that was good as far as the carbon footprint was concerned. But my avatar liked to have the latest technology and play lots of video games, which had a bigger impact on my carbon footprint. And then finally, when it comes to diet, I'm an omnivore. Now, as we went through this game, we were divided up into 2 teams, and each team had a facilitator that kind of helped us work through this game. And one of the other participants said that she would be willing to change from driving the car every day to carpooling every day. And our facilitator, I really liked what he did. He said, now wait a minute, is that realistic? Are you going to go from complete dependence on your car to complete carpooling? And he said, how about if we divide that by this many, and we'll just say 2 days a week, you'll carpool, okay? So he's really trying to help us see that small changes made an impact. So by the time it got around to me, I said, oh yeah, I think I can carpool, but I also want to give up meat on Mondays. I'm going to do meatless Mondays, okay? And so that was figured in. Now, we didn't quite get to our goal, okay, of reduced carbon emissions. We ran out of time, but I was really impressed by how much we had accomplished by making small changes, okay? So since then, I've kind of been thinking, all right, what are some things that I can do, okay? I know that at home, my husband for a long time has been very, very worried about water use. And so he's made some changes, and we've been able to work together to make some changes to reduce the amount of water that we use. Lately, since I've been preparing this, returned home from the boot camp, I'm trying to be more aware of when lights are left on in my house, and so I'll turn them off and things like that. This year, okay, I'm not perfect. I love Christmas lights. I love a lot of things that probably contribute to global warming, climate change. But like, for example, travel impacts, you know, the carbon footprint a whole lot. So I'm not perfect, but there are things that I can do to change. For example, with my Christmas lights this year, I didn't put up as many as last year, yay. Okay, but anyway, there are other things that probably you can think of that we can do, all right? First of all, maybe one thing you want to do is to try and calculate your own carbon footprint. I found this site, nature.org, it's put together by the Nature Conservancy. And the only thing I didn't like about it is it asked me how much I spend on my electric bill or my gas bill or things like that, which I thought, well, I don't know if that's great. But since it does start with your zip code, it kind of figures in, okay, how much are people likely to spend in that area? But I went through and I thought, okay, I'm doing really well in some of these areas, other areas I'm not so well. And one thing that it did at the very end is it actually said, oh, will you commit to these behaviors to reduce your carbon footprint? So there are other calculators out there. If you want to take a look, just do a search for, calculate my carbon footprint, and you'll find some of these things. But that's a good starting point of things to do, okay? So what are some other things that you could do as students to reduce your carbon footprint? Yeah.
I think one of the things, I was just doing, just looking up what everyday activities contribute to things. I was looking at video games first, and I was like, I'm curious what other activities I'm doing that mainly contribute to my carbon footprint or the overall carbon footprint. I think there's things that I could do, like instead of driving my car all the way up to Layton, I could just drive it to the train station and then take the train up and then take the train back down to Provo, because that saves like 2 hours of driving time and also 2 hours worth of emissions every time that I would go up that direction.
Wonderful. I like that you said you informed yourself. Okay, first of all, you informed yourself. What are some of the activities I'm doing that are contributing to these carbon emissions? Okay, and then I like that drive partway, drive up to Provo and then take the train. So using public transportation where it's available, right? Okay. How about, could some of you maybe walk to campus or bike to campus just one more time per week? Okay. Could some of you maybe do a meatless, like a meatless day when you have no meat in your diet, okay, on one particular day? If not, maybe one less meal that has meat in it per week, okay? How about studying during the day and then sleeping at night so you can turn your lights off at night? How about studying in the library where they already have to have the lights turned on, okay, and then maybe we're just reserving home stuff for other things. Now, I'm not saying that these are things that everybody can do, okay? But one other thing I'd like to encourage you to do is maybe, rather than streaming, which is something that you mentioned, okay, streaming your entertainment, maybe get out a board game or find something to do or go outside or do something with friends and make some connections besides helping to reduce your carbon footprint. So those are just a few things that I thought of. And there are a lot more that you can find as you go and do a little bit more research online. Okay. Now, so I've shared with you my 3 takeaways. I hope that I've convinced you that my experience, at least, at the boot camp was a good one, was worthwhile. So, if I have done that, I want to convince you now to maybe look at the opportunities for the community college in France boot camps for this coming year, for 2023, okay? This year, the boot camps that are available there are 4 being advertised. The first one is Sustainable City Campuses. So once again, sustainability in the city. How do we create that? Next, Nature, Tamed and Wild from Lyon. Not really sure what that one is about, but there are flyers available that do describe the programs. Sustainable Business in Rennes, France. And then the last one is Sustainable Management of Marine Ecosystems in La Ciotat, which is down on the Mediterranean coast down by Marseille, okay? So these look really cool to me. I was glad I went to the one that I went to because of where I'm from, but maybe some of you are interested in some of these others and you would like to participate. If you are interested, please go to FrenchHigherEducation.org and take a look at the flyers. There are links, okay, for these different programs. And you can see what's involved, the kinds of outcomes, where you would be studying, the kinds of field trips that you would be taking, and see if that's something that would interest you. Now, how do you apply? This is great. There are 3 things you need to remember. 1, you have to complete the online application. Now, the online application opens this Monday, so you have a couple days to think about it, okay? After that, you need to attach your most recent transcript, academic transcript, to your application. And finally, you need to be nominated by a Snow College faculty member or administrator. I'm happy to help any of you by nominating you, but I think it would be more effective if you would talk about this with a professor in one of those areas that you know, and maybe talk with them about what your interest is in applying to the Community College in France program, and have them nominate you. Like I said, I'm happy to do it. I know that the folks over at the Center for Global Engagement would be happy to help you out, but I think it might be more powerful if it comes from somebody in one of those areas. Cost, hey, hasn't changed. Still $2,400. Once again, includes the academic program, the housing, meals, field trips, local transportation. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that, local transportation. They gave us a bus card. It was great. We just got to ride the bus wherever we wanted to go in Grenoble. And then airport pickup. They will come to the airport and pick you up. Now, the nearest airport for me was Lyon, but I flew into Paris because I wanted to visit Paris, and then I took the train down to Grenoble. So if you want airport pickup, you have to actually fly into the nearest airport to where that school is, okay? You will need to pay for your own airfare to the nearest city in France. I mentioned that earlier. And once again, your application is automatically considered for a scholarship from the French government up to $1,400. So I hope that you have seen the importance of paying attention to issues of sustainability and climate change, and that you are convinced that now you should maybe see about participating in these new boot camps that have to do with sustainability. Thank you for your time and for your attention. Now I have time, let's see, we have time for a few questions. So please, let me know what you think. Yes, you may applaud, that's fine. Tassi has a microphone over here. We have time for a few questions. I'm not going to excuse you until I get a few. Yes, down here. Thank you.
So I'm interested in what more details can you give us of what inspired you to go participate in this program?
Okay. I think probably simply to participate in the Community College in France program, what inspired me is simply because I teach French, okay? And I had the opportunity to go around outside of class and explore the city, and I got to use my French. It was so much fun. In fact, one day, I was walking along in the evening after class, and I was walking down in the city center, and I saw this woman, this little old woman, pass me, and then I heard this tiny little voice say, "Bonjour," and I was like, is she talking to me? And I turned around and I said, "Ah, bonjour," and so we started having this conversation, and basically the gist of it was, she said, "You should be paying attention to people when they say hello to you." And I was like, "Oh, you're absolutely right, you're absolutely right." So then we had this lovely, delightful conversation, and it was great. I got to go to museums. I spent my weekend there between the 2 weeks looking at different museums that actually, there are a lot of free museums available when you go to France, and so I learned a lot about the history of the area. As well as I got to go to a museum for an artist who used to live there. It was in his former home. I mean, it was wonderful. So that was the main thing. But another reason that I wanted to go is because I wanted to encourage students to go. And I figured that they probably would be like, "Yeah, but what's it like?" And so now I can tell you, this is what it's like. It's great. It's so worthwhile. So thank you. Very good question. Other questions? Need another question? Yeah.
How did you find the people in France? Because I know that I lived in Finland for 2 years, and typically I wasn't spoken to unless I started the conversation first. So I found that really interesting that woman said bonjour to you first.
Yes. She was awesome. Yeah, so what did I think of the people in France? I've traveled before to France, and I lived there. I've been teaching French for over 20 years, as well as culture. And so I find that it is so helpful when you guys, I hope you guys take another language. I hope that you study another language, because one of the best things you can do besides learning how to speak a language is learning how to interact in that language. And there are a bunch of codes that are different in France than in the US, okay? And this is one thing that I learned, that I've learned and I've actually taught, and I used when I was there. And when I don't use it, it messes me up. But one thing, if you enter into a building like a museum, a store, whatever, you identify the person in charge and you say bonjour, okay? That way they know that you are polite and they will say bonjour back. Once I did that, I usually had no problems. People were very nice to me. If I had a question, they answered my questions. If I need them to repeat, it was great. The one time in this particular case, I was kind of stressed. It was at the end of the program, and there was another participant who was taking the train back to Paris with me. And we couldn't find something because when I had arrived in Grenoble, the train came one direction, but then to go back to Paris, I had to find the different way. And I saw this gentleman, he was obviously an employee, and rather than saying, hello, bonjour, I just immediately launched into I'm sorry, is this a train to da-da-da? And he looked at me, and he's younger than I am. He was younger than I am. He's like maybe in his 20s, and he looked at me and he said, bonjour. And I thought, oh my goodness, yes, I forgot to say bonjour. And I said, bonjour, excusez-moi, est-ce que vous pourriez m'aider? Can you help me? I'm looking for the train today. Oh, yes, this is it. Okay, thank you very much. I'm so embarrassed. So, sometimes when you get a little bit stressed, you forget. But in general, I found that people were very good. In fact, afterwards, my husband came to Paris, and we traveled around northern France and central France together. And it was absolutely this wonderful experience. People were remember these people, they asked us where we were from, and they talked with us, and this one lady said, oh, you are part of our family now. I mean, it was amazing. So really, it helps to know the codes of conduct. So anyway, time for one more question. Yeah?
So I was wondering, you said, obviously it's a class. So what's required for the class? Because obviously there's fun stuff there.
Yes.
But what do you do for the class that you need to take in account when you're signing up?
Great question. Okay, so these are advertised as programs that anybody can sign up for. So you just have a general knowledge, and then they teach you. The lectures that we had really aimed at just giving us a very basic knowledge, taking us from that basic level, and then giving us a little bit more information so that we could use it for our final projects. That is a great question, thank you, absolutely. Okay, thank you so much, you guys, for this semester. You've been a great class. Make sure you come see me soon, and we'll see you next semester.